Before you dive into this story of grit, vengeance, and an unforgettable twist, make sure to subscribe for more jaw-dropping tales where the quietest souls carry the loudest secrets, stories that remind you that not everything is as it seems. On the outskirts of a sleepy rural town where dust clung to fences and cows grazed lazily beneath skies that stretched endlessly, there lived a quiet farm girl named Clara and her younger brother Luke, two siblings who had long learned that silence was safer than standing out. For the townsfolk, especially the cruel kids at the high school, saw them as easy targets, poor, shabby, out-of-place country children who kept to themselves in the corner of the cafeteria and trudged home down dirt paths while others sped away in shiny trucks. But what no one in town realized was that Clara, behind her soft-spoken demeanor, her sun-faded overalls, and her straw-colored braids, carried a past darker and sharper than anyone could imagine. For before returning home to tend the family farm after her father's accident, she had lived another life, one etched in secrecy and sworn oaths. She was a Navy SEAL, trained in the harshest corners of the earth, molded by fire, water, steel, and blood, someone who had stared into the eyes of danger, danced with death, and come back with scars and skills few could even fathom, though she hid it beneath the disguise of a humble farm girl, never telling even her brother the extent of who she truly was, because the truth was heavy and dangerous, and she believed leaving it buried was the only way to keep her family safe. But life has a way of dragging the past to the surface, especially when cruelty forces the quiet to roar, and that moment came one autumn afternoon when Bullies, three local boys who fancied themselves kings of the county, cornered Luke behind the grain silo after school, their voices dripping with mockery as they shoved him into the dirt, sneering about his patched-up boots, his hand-me-down jacket, his quiet sister who they claimed was too odd, too shy, maybe even too weak to defend herself. And though Luke tried to endure, tried not to cry, something in him snapped when they pushed harder, and Clara, who had been waiting by the edge of the field to walk him home, heard the echo of his cry, a sound she had trained herself never to ignore, and in that instant, the Navy SEAL in her stirred, an instinct deeper than habit, a reflex honed in the dark waters of the Pacific and the unforgiving sands of desert battlefields. And while the bullies thought they had picked an easy target, they had unknowingly chosen a predator far more dangerous than any of their small-town minds could conceive. So she strode into view, calm but carrying the storm, her eyes narrowing as she said in a voice low and steady, "Let him go." And the boys, recognizing her only as the strange farm girl who avoided crowds, laughed, mocking her threat, and the leader, a tall boy named Randy whose father owned half the farmland in the county, stepped forward, saying, "Or what? You gonna cry too?" Unaware that he had just placed himself on the edge of a precipice from which there was no safe retreat, for Clara's restraint was immense but not infinite, and when Randy shoved Luke again, her body moved before thought, her hand snapping to his wrist, twisting in a maneuver so swift and brutal that his laughter turned into a scream, the sound echoing across the fields as his knees buckled beneath the pain, and the other two bullies froze, confusion and fear spreading as they realized this wasn't the reaction they expected. But Clara wasn't done. For as Randy tried to pull free, she shoved him backward with the precision of a fighter who knew exactly how to direct force, sending him sprawling into the dust, then turned her gaze on the others, who stepped back uneasily, muttering insults to hide their fear. Yet Clara only spoke softly, almost too calm, "If you ever touch my brother again, you'll regret it." Words so chilling in their simplicity that the boys felt a dread they couldn't explain, a dread that came not from the words but from the weight of experience behind them. Though they laughed nervously and slunk away, spitting empty threats over their shoulders, and Luke, wide-eyed, stared at his sister as if seeing her for the first time, whispering, "Clara, how did you?" But she only ruffled his hair and told him it was nothing, urging him home, though inside she felt the dangerous shift, for the seal on her secret life had cracked, and once it cracked, the flood was inevitable. And true enough, the bullies nursed their humiliation, plotting revenge, whispering rumors around school that Clara was dangerous, unhinged, maybe even violent. But still, they could not shake the shame of being bested by a girl they had always considered beneath them. And humiliation, when mixed with arrogance, is a powder keg. So one night, emboldened by alcohol and the illusion of strength in numbers, they gathered again, this time not just three but with others, older boys from the town, sons of men who had long sneered at Clara's family for their poverty. And they decided to pay a visit to the farm, torches in hand, cruel laughter on their lips, imagining themselves as righteous avengers of their pride. But they had no idea that the quiet farmhouse, with its sagging porch and creaking boards, was not a place of weakness but a fortress waiting for intruders, for Clara had learned to turn even the simplest tools into weapons, had learned to fight in shadows and silence, and when the boys crept into the barn, planning to wreck the tools and scare Luke, they found themselves suddenly disarmed, tripped, pinned by ropes and pulleys that Clara maneuvered with the skill of someone who once set traps behind enemy lines, and one by one, their bravado collapsed into terror as she appeared from the shadows, face calm, eyes steady, and delivered words like bullets. "You wanted a fight. Now you've got one," before demonstrating just enough of her training to break them. A swift takedown here, a pressure hold there, each move leaving them gasping, writhing, begging for release, until finally Randy, once their fearless leader, cried out that he was sorry, that they'd never bother her again, but Clara, her voice steady as steel, said, "This isn't just about me. This is about every time you thought weakness was yours to exploit. Consider this your only warning," and then she released them, letting them stagger back into the night, bruised not just in body but in spirit, their arrogance shattered. Yet Clara knew the storm wasn't over, for by morning, rumors spread faster than fire, painting her as violent, dangerous, unhinged, and the town, instead of siding with her, whispered fearfully, because people are often more comfortable fearing the strong than condemning the cruel. But what no one realized was that Clara had stirred forces beyond small-town gossip, because one of the older boys had an uncle in law enforcement, and he began asking questions, and soon enough Clara's sealed military records drew the attention of people who preferred her past remain buried, and suddenly the town wasn't the only threat. Men in suits came sniffing around, shadows of her old life, reminding her that secrets never stay hidden forever, and as Clara fought to protect Luke and the farm, she realized the bullies had only been the beginning, the spark to a fire that would blaze far beyond the fields, dragging her into a war between her past and her present, one that would test just how far she was willing to go to protect the only family she had left, even if it meant revealing every deadly skill she had ever learned. And when the final confrontation came, with the bullies desperate, the town divided, and her past bearing down on her doorstep, Clara did what she always did best. She fought not for herself, not for pride, but for love, for loyalty, for Luke, and when the dust settled, the town no longer saw her as the quiet farm girl to be mocked, nor even as the dangerous woman to be feared, but as something more, a protector, a warrior, a storm in disguise. And though Clara never asked for their respect, she had earned something far greater, the knowledge that sometimes the quietest souls carry the loudest thunder, and that when bullies come for the weak, they may find themselves standing against the strongest force of all, one forged not in cruelty but in sacrifice, discipline, and unbreakable love.